I think it's time to get started. So let's go to the first question. So this one is about the difference of the square numbers, right? So first, let's just review that formula we learned. So it's going to be a squared take away b squared, right? So can one tap it to me equals to what number times by what number? Anyone still remember that? A squared minus b squared equals to what number in the bracket times by what number? It's going to be the sum of these two numbers times by the difference of these two numbers, right? So we should do a plus b, or we take away b. Which one you do that first is doesn't matter, right? Times by a minus b. All right. So that will be the equation. That will be the formula we learned. And then to solve these two questions, you can just use that formula to do it. So for question A, as for question A, you have 123 squared minus 23 squared. So we could do the sum of these two numbers, 1, 2, 3 plus 2, 3, right? And then times it by the difference of that, which is 123 take away 23. That equals to 146 times by 100. So the final answer will be 146 followed by 2 zeros. All right. That's it. And then for the second question, guys, for the second one, you will see that it's 85 times 85 take away 35 times by 35, right? So 85 is a square, 35 is also a square. So we have that 85 squared minus 35 squared, right? So that equals to the sum of these two numbers times by the difference of these two numbers. All right, so far so good. And then what's the sum of 85, 35? You could do 80 plus 30 plus 10, right? It's going to be 120. And then times by the difference of these two. 85 minus 35, you got 50. Right? So the final answer, 12 times by 50, you got 60. And then followed by 2 zeros. So the final answer will be 6,000. Okay? 6,000. All right, guys, that's it. That's about this formula, about this difference of square numbers. It's going to be really useful. I hope you can remember that, okay? And then for these two questions, it's like some a little bit complicated questions, but the method, the formula used will be the same. So first, I suggest you, if you got an exam, guys, if you have the test, I suggest you to write down that formula on the top of a paper to remind you. A squared minus b squared equals to the sum of these two, which is a plus b, and then times by a minus b, right? So when you have that, you can solve this first question. That's a question number 1. That will be 44 squared minus 43 squared, which is just the sum of these two times by the difference of these two, right? So you'll have that 44 adding 43 in the bracket and times by, guys, you'll find that if you try to get the difference of that two numbers, 44 minus 43, that equals to 1, right? That equals to 1. And actually for 42 and 41, when you do the sum, that will be 42 plus 41. But when you times by the difference, guys, 42 minus 41 gives you 1. So you can just time 1 there. And all the way, guys, to what number? All the way to the last 2, right? That will be 2 plus 1 times by 2 minus 1. And 2 minus 1 will be 1. So let's do one more step of the calculation. This bracket, guys, is 1, and all the others will be 1. So if you remove the bracket, you should do nothing to the thing you have in the bracket, right? So just remove that directly. So you have 44 plus 43 plus 42, 41, all the way to 1, all the way to 2 and 1, right? So guys, to get the sum of the sequence, you found that arithmetic sequence, right? So we know that we could do the first term. We can count from the right to the left, right? So the smallest number is 1. So we do the first term, adding the last term, times by how many terms we have, which is actually 44 terms, right? And then guys, don't forget you have to divide it by 2. So everyone, please do this calculation. Tell me what you got. 44 plus 1, 45, right? And then times by 44 divided by 2, you got 22. Actually, if you want to get the answer mentally, you could do 45 times by 2, that would be 90. 90 times by 11, you got 990. All right, so that will be the answer to the first question, 990. And then for the second question, anyone still remember how do we solve such kind of problem? So actually you will see that in this question, that 1 squared minus 2 squared, it's going to be an negative number, right? It's negative. 3 squared minus 4 squared is negative, and they're all negatives, right? But if I change that in some other way, I will get positive. The other way around. Yes, guys, very good. So we could just write down the last term, 15 squared, right? You can just copy that down. That is positive. You do rewrite, no problem. And then you take away the second last, which is 14 squared, right? Make sense? And then that's plus 13 squared, take away 12 squared, and then let's omit the middle ones. And then you will see that we will add this odd number, which is positive, right? So add 3 squared minus 2 squared, and don't forget you have to add 1 squared at the end. All right. So if we convert that into this way, that will be the exactly same thing as the first question, right? So that will be 15 squared minus 14 squared. That will be 15 plus 14 times by 15 minus 14, which is 1. So which is just 15 plus 14, right? If you're familiar, you can just write down that in this way. And then plus 13 plus 12 all the way to 3 plus 2, and then plus 1 squared, which is 1. So guys, it's also another arithmetic sequence, right? So guys, do this calculation. Tell me what's the answer for this one. 1 plus 2 all the way to 15. You do 1 plus 15 times by 15, and then divided by 2. That will be 16 times by 15 divided by 2, right? And that will be 8 times by 15. 8 times by 15, we got 120. So that will be the answer to the second question. Okay, guys, are we all good? It's all clear so far. Any questions do you have? Is it all clear? Can you send me a sum up if you understand everything so far? Okay, thank you, guys. Now let's move on to the next page. So for this question, guys, you're given this formula, which is about we're gonna count from 1, so all the way to n. That'll be 1 squared, 2 squared, 3 squared, all the way to n squared. So guys, for now, you don't need to remember that formula. In the exam, we will just tell you directly. But you have to know how do we use this formula, okay? So if you got this number starting from 1 all the way to n squared, so the sum of that, all the numbers will just be this formula. You have 6 in the denominator, and in the numerator, that will be n times by n plus 1 times by 2n plus 1. All right. So guys, to solve this question, it's pretty easy. Just focus on the last term, which is 12, right? So it means you're going to replace all the n in the formula by 12 and do the calculation. You'll find the answer. So let's do that. again, it's going to be 12 times by, actually, you don't need to do 12 plus 1. So you can just get the numbers 13. And the last number, 2n plus 1. Guys, you will find that 2n plus 1 is just the sum of these two previous numbers, right? n plus 1 will be 2n plus 1. So you can just times by the sum of these first two numbers. So 12 plus 13, you got 25. Right? And then you divide it by 6. Actually, guys, you will find that 12 is divisible by 6. So you do 12 divided by 6 first. That will be 2. So you do 2 times by 13 times by 25. And we know that 2 times 25 is going to be 50. The 13 times by 50, that will be 650. Okay? That's it, guys. That's how you solve the question. So actually in the real test of exam, you'll be given this formula as well, and you just need to know how do we use this formula. Okay. So next question, guys, you'll see that for the actually today for this session, I just combined the question from acceleration and mastery. So if you find that question you don't have in your paper, it doesn't matter. Okay. So because some of the questions I choose that from the acceleration, some of the questions I choose from mastery. So just take a look at the question, see can you solve it, okay? So for this question, you got Albert and Betty. They are 6,000 meters apart and start walking towards each other at the same time. The speed ratio of Albert to Betty is this 7 to 8. When they meet each other, how far has Betty walked? So guys, can you type your answer to me? Yes, Bojun, that's right. Sophia, no problem. Salmon, that's right. So guys, for such kind of problem, you can draw a diagram here. We know that total distance is 6,000, right? 6,000. And this is Albert, this is Betty. We know the speed ratio is this much, right? So it looks like Betty, it's going to be Betty is the faster one. So Betty in the same time. Guys, don't forget, if you forgot to do some screenshot, I will send all the class notes to you in our group. So please just download that, okay? So that means in the same time, Betty will travel some further, some more distance than Albert, right? And as we know that if the time is fixed, because the meeting problem, right? If that's a meeting problem, that means they're gonna spend the same time. When the time is fixed, the ratio of the distance, or the ratio of the distance is directly proportional to the ratio of the speed, right? So that means this is 7 part and this is 8 part. And the question asks you how far has Betty walked? So it's pretty easy. Just use 6,000 divide by how many parts that you have in total, which is going to be 15, right? And for Betty, you will cover 8 parts of that. So you're going to times by 8. So that means the fraction will be 8 over 15. But actually, I should do times, not divide. Okay, I should times this fraction over here. Okay, guys, anyone got the answer? We know that 60 divided by 15 equals to 4, so that'll be 400 times by 8. 4 times by 8 is 32, right? So followed by 2 zeros. That means the final answer will be C. Okay, that's it. And then next question, at N walked from home to school and then cycles from school to home. The speed ratio of walking to cycling is 3 to 7. It takes him 35 minutes to walk from home to school. How long does it take him to cycle from school to home? Okay, so let me draw the diagram here. This is the home. This is our home. This is school. And guys, when you go from home to school, we know the distance is this much, right? But when you go from school go back home, the distance won't be changed, right? The distance is also the same. But it tells you the ratio of the speed. Let's see, guys, the ratio of the speed. The speed ratio is going to 3 to 7. And also we know that the distance is fixed, right? Just remember what you learned in the class. If the distance is fixed, then the time ratio will be inversely proportional to the speed ratio, right? Because when you slow down, it's going to take you some more time to cover the same distance, right? So the time ratio is going to be 7 to 3, right? 7 to 3. Just swap that order. You'll know the time ratio when you go from home school and school from school go back home. The ratio will be changed into 7 to 3 in terms of time, right? And then we know that, you see, it takes him 35 minutes to walk from home to school. So that means that 7 parts will be 35 minutes. Right? So if 7 part is 35 minutes, what is 3 parts, guys? What is 3 parts? That'll be the answer. How long does it take him to cycle from school to home? From school to home. You're going to do 35, that'll be 35 minutes, divided by 7 parts. And the time that he spent from school, go back home, that'll be 3 parts. So you divide by 7 times by 3. That'll be 5 times by 3, got 15 minutes. All right? So we choose E here. So when you go from home to school, the speed is going to be 3, right? But when you go back home, the speed is 7. So that means the time taken must be less than 35. So actually in the exam, that C must be canceled directly. All right, guys, that's it. And then next question. This question, I think, is from the mastery, right? Let's see. It tells you that two planes fly along the same flight path and start flying at the same time. Plane A flies from CDA to CDB, while plane B flies from CDB to CDA. When they pass each other, plane A flies this much more than B, and the speed ratio of them is 9 to 7. Our question is, what is the distance between these two cities? So guys, still, let's draw this diagram. This is CDA, this is B. And you know that plane A flies this much more than B, right? So let's see, there'll be a little bit more. It's not in the middle. It's going to be here. So guys, because it's a meeting problem, right? Can anyone tell me, in meeting problem, time, distance, speed, which one is fixed for both of them in meeting problem? The distance is the same. You see, the distance is not the same. Of course, distance is not the same. Speed is not same. You see, it tells you the speed of plane A to B is 9 to 7. It's not same. It's different, right? So the distance is different. The speed is different, but the time is fixed, right? So it means you start from here and I start at the same time, but we meet at the same time at this place. So of course, time is fixed. If time is fixed, guys, we know that the ratio of the distance covered equals to the ratio of the speed, right? That will be directly proportional. So let's call this part, we can call this part as dA, that will be distance covered by A. And this is dB, this will be the distance covered by plane B, right? So you know that the distance ratio will be the same as the speed ratio for A and B. That will be 9 to 7. right? The distance ratio. But is this the one from paper? Yes, it's the one from paper. And in the paper, I think some of the paper you got 79. I think that is wrong because plan A flies 600 kilometers more than B. So it cannot be 97. It cannot be 79. It must be 97. Okay. So you found out if the distance ratio is 97 and tells you the difference of their distance is 600 kilometers. So that means there's two parts, right? The difference, which is two parts equals to 600 kilometers. That, in other words, one part equals to 300, right? So one part equals 300 kilometers. Question, what is the distance between A and B? You see that if you use this ratio, in total, that will be 16 parts, right? 9 plus 7, you got 16 parts. And each part, we know that equals 300 kilometers. So when you times them together, you got the total distance between A and B. That'll be 4,800 kilometers. Okay, guys, did you get that correct? Yes, Mina?
Why is it two parts equals 600 kilometers? Oh wait, plane A flies 600 km more.
Yeah, more. It says more, not A flies this much. It's A flies 600 more than B. So we're going to focus on the difference of this ratio. 97, you found the difference will be two parts, right? Okay. Next question. Why is it times by 16? Okay, good question. Let's go back. Since you figure out that two parts is 600, right? So that means one part is 300. Why do we need to times by 16? That is because if you take a look of that ratio, that is 97, right? So if you want to get the total distance from A to B, you have to use that one part times by how many parts that you have from A to B. So that will be 9 plus 7 parts. So that's why we times by 16. Yep. Okay, one more question. Frank and Georgina starts running from library to school at the same time. When Frank arrives at school, Georgina still needs 10 minutes to get to school. The speed ratio of Frank to Georgina is this much, 11 to 6. How long does it take for Georgina go from library to school? Okay, guys, still, let's draw the diagram. To help us. They're gonna go from library to school, right? This is library, this is our school. And it says when Frank arrived at the school. So let me use the say the blue color to represent Frank. Okay, guys. This is Frank. Yes, guys, you can, if you want to go, you can go to the toilet. That's Frank. We covered all the distance from library to school, right? And you will see that for Georgina. Let's use some red color. This is Georgina at the same time, right? At the same time. So you still need 10 more minutes to go to school. 10 more minutes, right? And it tells us the speed ratio is 11 to 6. 11. And this is 6. All right. So question, how long does it take for Gina to go from library to school? Okay, guys, how to solve the question? Any ideas? We know the ratio. We know the ratio, guys. We know the ratio of the speed. We know the ratio of the speed. So actually, if you know the ratio of the speed to cover the same distance, you see, to cover the same distance from library to school, you will know the ratio of their time, right? That is Frank to George. And the speed ratio equals to 11 to 6. Okay, no problem. And if they're going to cover the same distance from library to school, the time ratio they're going to spend, guys, can anyone tell me equals to what kind of ratio? The distance is fixed. The speed ratio and time ratio will be inversely proportional, right? So that'll be 6 to 11. And if you read from this diagram, you find that for Georgina, you're going to spend 10 minutes more than Frank to cover that distance, right? To cover that distance. The answer is not A, I guess. You see that the time spent, the distance of that will be 5 parts. Make sense? That will be 5 parts. And 5 parts equals to how many minutes, guys? 5 parts equals to how many minutes? Take a look of the picture. 10 more minutes, right? The difference is 5 parts. That means Georgina gonna spend 5 parts more than Frank to cover that same distance. But in the question, tell you that it's going to be 10 minutes because Georgina gonna spend 10 more minutes to reach school when Frank have already arrived there. So 5 parts is 10 minutes. So one part will be 2 minutes. Okay, one part will be 2 minutes. And you see that in this ratio, it's gonna take 11 parts in total for Georgina to cover all the distance. So you have to 11 times by 2, because we know that one part is 2, right? For Georgina, gonna be 11 parts. The one part equals 2 minutes. And you're gonna spend 11 parts in total to cover that whole distance. So the time for Georgina equals to 2 times by 11, which is 22 minutes. So that's why we choose B. Okay, guys, does that make sense about this question? Yep, that's all clear. No questions, so I'm gonna move on. Yes, Harry.
For that last question, why did you have to do 11 times 2?
Since we figured out that as for the time ratio, F to G, it's 6 to 11, right? So you know the difference is going to be 5 parts. And you can see that 5 parts is basically 10 minutes. It's actually 10 minutes. So you see that one part equals to 2 minutes, right? The question asks you, what's the question? Question asks you, how long does it take for Georgina to go from the library to school?
Okay.
The time in the ratio, the time is 11 part. And you know that one part is 2 minutes. So you do 2 times by 11. That gives you the total time. So that'll be 22 minutes. That's why. All right. And then let's take a look at this question. This one over here. A 4-digit number A47B is a multiple 6. What is the largest possible value of this 4-digit number? Okay, guys, we never learned the divisibility rule for 6, right? But we do learn that if the number is divisible by 6, it must be divisible by 3 and 2 at the same time, right? It must be divisible by 3 and 2 at the same time. So out of all the options, this one cannot be divisible by 2. This one cannot be divisible by 2. And also the last one is not a multiple 2. And you're gonna choose from B or D, right? Because we see that D is a little bit bigger than B, right? So we can just check it. Is that correct? Of course, it's divisible by 2. But when you do 9 plus 4 plus 7 and plus 4, guys, that equals to one number.
$25.
What number? 25?
24.
D4.
Yeah, guys, it's 24. And is that 24 divisible by 3? Is that 24 divisible by 3?
Yes.
Yes. Of
Equals
course.
8.
Equals to 8. If you divide by 3, you got 8. So that means D is correct, guys. That's the largest possible value, because you see that the next number, which is divisible by 3, you have to add 3 to it. So when you add 3 to this number, this 9,474, you'll find it's not an even number, right? It's the last digit is 7. But when you add another 4 to it, you cannot make sure the 10th digit is 7, because it tells you the 10th place is 7. So that means this must be the largest. Okay, 9474. So you can choose D. All right, that's it. So we don't need to care about B because that's much smaller than D. You don't need to worry about that. It must be D. All right. The next question: in how many ways is it possible to place side by side 2 of the cards shown to form a 2-digit prime number? How many ways there? So guys, if you want to get a prime number and also 2-digit prime number, that cannot be even number, right? That must be odd number, because we know the only even prime number is just number 2. All the others will be odd numbers. So that means last digit could be either 3 or 7. You're gonna have 2 different types. Okay, so let's get start from 3, because it's cards, right? So you cannot have 33 or 77, and actually they are not prime numbers. Okay, so let's just check it one by one. 23, is that prime, guys? Is that prime? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah. What about 73? Is that prime number?
Yeah.
Yeah.
83, is that prime number?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. 27, is that a prime number?
No.
No.
Divisible by 3. 37, is that prime?
Yes.
Yeah.
And 87, is that prime?
No.
Not really.
No.
If you add 8 and 7, you got 15. So guys, please make sure you are muted. It's a bit noisy. Thank you. So you will see that you have 1, 2, 3, 4 ticks. That means we're going to choose B. All right. Next question is that the product of 2 prime numbers is this much. What is the sum of the 2 prime numbers? Okay, guys, what do you think? 2 prime numbers times it. You got even number. How could it be possible? Amity, what do you think? Two prime times it, this number. Yes, Bojun? So a number times a number, you got even. That means
Odd times even equals even.
yes, because we don't have 2 even prime numbers. It must be even times by odd. And only even prime number will be 2, right? So you just do one of the division, 158, 2, that'll be 79. that 79 a prime number, guys? Of course it is.
Yeah.
So the answer to the
Yeah.
question is going to be the sum of these two numbers. So we do 2 plus
81.
81. Yeah, that's it. Okay, next question. Yeah, this one. A and B are prime numbers, and if you do 5 times A plus 9 times B equals to 127. What is A plus B? So basically, guys, to solve such kind of problem, we're gonna do the odd even analysis, right? This one is odd number. That's right. And is this one odd number? So how can you get odd number? Even plus even is even, right? Odd plus odd is even. Am I right? Odd plus odd must be even. So 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. So if you want to add two numbers to get odd number, that must be 1 even plus 1 odd. Am I right? Yep. Make sense? But you will see that this is 5. 5 is odd number. 9 is also odd number. That means out of these two, A or B, it must be 1 even, 1 odd. So that means it could be either A equals to 2 or B equals to 2, because it tells you A and B are prime numbers, right? So let's have a try, because so far we never know which one is 2. So you can just let A, so type 1, okay, or case 1, let A equals 2, and see, can we figure out B is also prime number, right? If B is also prime number, then we can solve the question. If A is 2, that will be 5 times by 2 plus 9 times B equals to 127. That will be 9 times B equals to 117. Okay, guys, is that divisible? Is that divisible, guys?
No, yes.
Yes or no? Yes. 1 divided by, 11 divided by 9, you got 1, which is 2 left. 27 divided by 9, you got 13. And guys, you have to check it. Is that a prime number? Yes, it is prime number. So the answer to the question will be A plus B, which is 2 plus 13. That gives you 15, right? So that will be one of the answer, but we still need to take a look. Is that possible B equals 2, right? So case 2, let B equals 2. If B is 2, that will be 5A plus 2 times by 9 equals to 127. Guys, actually, when you do 5A, that equals 127, take away 18, right? If you take away 10, you got 117. Take away 8, that would be 109. Right? Of course, it's not divisible because the last digit is not 5 or 0. So it cannot be a whole number for A if you solve that. So, guys, this 15 will be the only correct answer to the question. Okay, guys, are we good? Should I move on? Any questions? Is that all clear? All right. So, let's continue to the next question. A 2-digit number is 4 times the sum of its digits, and this 2-digit number is multiple of 9. What is a 2-digit number? So guys, to solve this one, you can use the place value that we learned. You can set this number as AB. So the value of this 2-digit number will be 10 of A, because A is in the 10th place, right? Plus B. And now you will have an equation. It tells you this 2-digit number is 4 times, right? It's 4 times the sum of its digits. It's 4 times the sum of its digits. So there'll be 4 times by the sum of A and B, right? And now you can just solve it. 10A plus B equals to 4A plus 4B. So we can do 10A minus 4A. You got 6A on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, 4B minus this 1B, right, on the left. That will be 3B. Okay. And then you can divide 3 from both sides. That will be 2A equals to 1B. So you see that B is smaller, right? The ones digit is smaller. In other words, the tens place must be double the tens place. I mean the ones digit. So you could have 21, right? You could have, say, 42. Okay, is that correct? Nope. Sorry. I mean, if A is 1, B will be 2. So B will be bigger than A. So you have 12, 24, 36, 48. That's it. Because if you got 5 there, the last digit can now be 10. So you have 4 choices, but it tells you this number will be multiple of 9, right? So out of this 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers, which one is multiple of 9?
36.
Only 36 is multiple of 9, right? Only 36. So we're going to choose this one. 36. That's the answer. All right, guys, next question. So these questions, we only have that, I think, in mastery. So in acceleration, you don't have this question, but if you are interested, you can also take a look at the question as well. So as for this question, it tells you that the product of these two numbers is a square. K is it's positive integer. What is K? So guys, if you want to get a square number, for example, 36 is a square number, right? That must be equal to some square number times by some square number, right? For example, 36 equals to 4 times by 9. That'll be 2 squared times by 3 squared. Okay. For example, let's come up with some other numbers. Let's see, what about say 25, but 25 is too easy. 64, right? We know that it's 8 squared, but instead of got 8 squared, you could also do 2 squared times by 4 squared, right? 2 squared times by 4 squared. That's also 64. So in other words, for any square number, you can convert that into another number, another square number, times them together. So for this one, guys, you got 89 times by K. So you have to convert that into the form that some square numbers times together. So for 89, guys, we have to do the prime factorization of 89. So we're going to use the short division this way. I'm not sure you are familiar about this method. So divided by 2, guys, first, because 2 is the smallest factor of that. So guys, can you tell me, this one divided by 2, you got one number. Is that 49? Yes, no problem. So 49, guys, is that a square number? You'll see that is 7 and 7. In other words, 89 equals to 7 squared times by 2. Am I right? Yep. Do you agree? Of course, that's correct. Okay. So 89 equals to 7 squared times by 2. And then now it tells you if you times K to this number, you get a square. Yes, Olivia? Yeah, so 92, I mean 98, right? So 98 equals to 7 squared times by 2. And if you want to get a square number, you just make sure this 2 will be converted into 2 squared. So the smallest number for K of this 98, there'll be 7 squared. So times by K, you want to get a square number. So you could do 7 squared times by 2 squared. But how can you convert that times by 2 into 2 squared? You let K equals to 2. That's it. So this 98 times by 2 equals to 7 squared times by 2 squared. Okay, so that's why we know the answer is just 2. Okay, guys, are we all good? Clear? Okay, next one. So which combination of the line segments below can form a triangle? Easy question. You just choose the two smaller one, add them together. That should be longer than the third one, right? So let's see. It says can form, right? Can form. 7 plus 14 equals 21. It's longer than 20. Of course, A is correct. What about B? 15 plus 9, that'll be 24. Smaller than 28, not a triangle. 3 plus 10, 13, less than 14, not a triangle. 8 plus 8, 16, less than 17, not a triangle. 3 plus 6 is 9, less than 10, it cannot be a triangle. So the answer is just A, okay? Only A is correct. And then the second question, two sides of isosceles, it says isosceles triangle, right? So that means you're gonna have two sides equals to each other. Measure 7 and 16, work out the perimeter of the isosceles triangle. So the first type, you could just, you could repeat that 7. So you have 7, 7, 16. And guys, you have to check it. Is that possible to form a triangle? So you find that when you add two shorter sides, 7 plus 7 is 14, less than 16. It cannot be a triangle, right? Because we know that in triangle, any two sides add up to the number which is bigger than the third side. So the only way you could get a triangle is that we have to double that 16. So we have 7, 16, and 16. So this time, the two shorter side will be 7 and 16. Of course, if you add them together, it must be longer than 16. So guys, the answer to the question, the perimeter, right? It asks you about the parameters. You do 7 plus 16 plus 16, that'll be the perimeter. Equals to 32 plus 7, you got 39, right? So that's the answer to this question. 39, easy. Next one, take a look at this page. So basically for this question, you got some right angle triangles. We're going to use the hypotenuse theorem, right? So let's just review about this formula you learned about this right angle triangle. Guys, if you got this Pythagoras, if you got a right angle triangle, this is a right angle. This is A, this is B, this is C. So the formula that we have will be the two shortest sides. You square that and add them together. That must be equal to the longest side in the right angle triangle. You square that, right? So that'll be C squared. So A squared plus B squared equals to C squared. That's it. And then let's just try to solve the question. It tells you that AC equals to 9, BC equals 12, and BH is 36. What is the parameter of this quadrilateral? If you want to get the quadrilateral the perimeter of this quadrilateral, you have to know what is the length of HA. But if you want to get HA, guys, you have to figure out what is AB first, right? Because you see that in HAB is right angle triangle. If you want to get the side of this length of this side, you have to know the other two sides. And you already given this one is 36. So what's the length of this? So to get that, guys, AB squared. As we know, in this triangle ABC, right? In triangle ABC, AB squared equals to AC squared, which is 9 squared plus 12 squared. All right, guys, tell me that equals to what number? 81 plus 144.
325.
225.
225, no problem. And then 225 equals to
15
what
squared.
number squared?
15 squared.
Equals
15 squared.
no problem, guys. Very good. If you see that it's 15 squared, that means the length of AB will be 15. And now to get AH, you're going to repeat using that formula again. AH squared, the longest side, equals to 15 squared plus 36 squared.
36 squared is 1,296 plus 225.
225 plus what number?
1,296.
This number. So that equals to what?
So it equals to 1,521, which is 39 squared. So we know that the length is
39.
It's 39 squared, right? Yep.
Yeah.
Actually, guys, you could do that. If you remember the triangle, I mean the triple, the Pythagorean triple, we do have that one. If you remember that, you can just get the number directly. Which is 5, 12, 13. Okay. If you remember this, you can just use it. Because you see that 36 equals to 12, you times by 3. And then 5, I see 15 here, it will be 5 times by 3. That means the longest side of that triangle will be this 13 times by 3 as well. So you can get 39, right? This is 39. So 2 ways, if you don't remember that triangle, guys, just to review what we have. The 2 triple that I hope you can remember. One of that is this 5, 12, 13. And another one you have will be this 3, 4, 5. And the last one, guys, I don't think you need to remember that. Just remember this 2 is enough. All right. So now, guys, let's just try to add them together, see what's the final answer, right? Because it asks you the perimeter of this quadrilateral. So you have to add 39, 36, 9, and 12 together. So guys, when you add them together, you got what kind of number?
I think it's 96.
Yep, very good. It's 96, no problem. 96. All right, so next question. As for circles, I think you just need to remember the formula together, the circumference of the circle and also the area of the circle. So let's just, before we solve the question, the circumference of the circle equals to pi times by the diameter, or you could do 2 times pi times by the radius, because 1 diameter equals 2 radius, right? And then the area of the circle then equals to pi times by radius squared. That's it. So that's enough. Let's just remember that. For this question, the circumference is what? You're going to take pi equals to 3. And also the question tells you the diameter is 12. So use that formula, circumference equals to pi times by the diameter, right? So you could do.
I think the first one is 36 times 3.
Yeah, so it's just 36, right? 36. Pi equals 3 and diameter is 12, so you got 36. As for the area, we're going to do pi times by radius squared. So it'll be 3. So also let me copy the formula first. There'll be 3 times by radius, which is half of the diameter, which is 6, right? So 6 squared. You got 3 times by 36. That is 108. So that's it. 108 square centimeters. All right, next one. Okay, this question is about I think it's about the combination of isosceles triangles and also the Pythagorean theorem. In this question, you got this isosceles triangle, 39, 39, 30. What is the area of that? So basically, guys, to get the area, we have to cut that in half. And one more thing you have to know is that when you cut that in half, it will be symmetrical, right? Left and right, it will be symmetrical. So this triangle on the left will be the same as the triangle on the right. So that means you got these 2 right angles, because 180 divided by 2, you got 90. And since AB is 30, you cut that in half. This will be 15. This will be 15, right? So guys, 39, 15. I think we just solved the question like that. The height will be 36, right? 36. How you got it? So just remember that triangle. 5, 12, 13, right? So 5 equals to 15 times by 3. So, 15 equals to 5 times by 3 is times by 3. And 39 is also 13 times by 3. That means the height of this triangle here will be 12 times by 3, times by the same number. You got 36. And you got the height. Once you get the height, you can get the area. It asks you about the area. Then the area equals to the base, which is 30 times by 36, the base times by the height, and then divided by 2, which is, guess what number?
8. Oh, 8. 540 divided 270.
Let's see, 3 times by 36 is 1080 divided by 2. What's that number?
540.
Yes, guys, it's just 540. That's the area of this triangle. Okay, that's it. So just remember, if I give you any isosceles triangle, you cut that in half, you get the area. Okay. So this is about sector. So if you know how to get the area or the perimeter of circle, you know how to get the sector, because it's just a part of the circle. You just have to make sure that what's the fraction of that angle to 360, right? So for this question, it asks you what's the area of the circle sector. So we can get the area of the circle first. We know the radius 16, so you will do pi times by radius squared, and then times by, because there's a quarter, right? So you could either just times by a quarter directly, or we could do 90 degrees over 360 degrees. That's the same. There's 3 times by 16 squared times by a quarter, right? So guess that equals to what number? What is the number that you got?
Is the answer 192?
Yep, that's right. 192, guys. When you solve that, when you calculate that, you get 192. So that's the area of this sector. All right. So next one. As for this question, I don't think acceleration have that, but actually it's also pretty easy, not hard at all. So first, what's the perimeter of this circle sector? So if you want to get the perimeter, you have to get the length of this arc and then add these 2 radius to it. That will be the perimeter, right? So first, let's try to get the arc. As for the first question, let's call that question number 1. We know the radius to get the circumference of the whole circle. That'll be 2 pi times by radius. But this one, it's a sector, it's not whole circle. You're gonna do 120 divided by 360. And that equals 2 times by 3 times by 9 and times by a third, which is 18, right? 18. But 18 is not the final answer to the question, because you have to include these 2 radius to it, right? So the radius 9 and 9. That means the final answer to the question will be 18. This is 18, right? 18 plus 9 plus 9, which is 36. Okay, 36. And then next question, what's the area of that? So as for the area, I guess that won't be very hard as well. You need to get the area of the whole circle and then times by a third, because we already know that the fraction is a third, right? So we do pi times by radius squared and then times by a third. Pi equals to 3. Radius is 9 squared times by 1/3, right? So 3 divided by 3 got 1. The answer is just 81. Okay, that's it. 81 square centimeters. Okay, one more. Actually, the method will be all the same. A sector has a diameter of 24. What's the area of the sector? If you know the diameter is 24, that means the radius will be half of 24 equals to 12. To get the area, we have to use the area of the whole circle, which is pi times by r squared. And then you have to times by the fraction of this sector to the whole circle. That will be 30 degrees over 360 degrees.
That's 12, I think.
Yeah, so 3 times by 12 squared times by 1/12, right? 1/12. And so you do 12 divided by 12, that you got 1/12 left, which is just 3 times by 12. You got 36, right? So the final answer is 36.
What was the answer to the perimeter of this question?
The perimeter to the question.
Yeah.
Okay, so as for the perimeter, let's say,
Why do you even need the perimeter anyways?
so if you want to
Because-
get, if you want to get the perimeter, guys, the method is the same of the sector. You could do pi times by the diameter, which is which is the circumference of the whole circle, right? But as for this sector, you only need to count this arc over there, which will be 30 over 360, which is 1 over 12, right? You times that. But don't forget, you have to add these 2 radius. And 1 radius is 12, so 2 radius is 24. So guys, when you do this calculation, let's see, that will be 3 times by 24. Yep. And then times by 1 over 12. And then you plus 2, you plus 24. So this 2, you cancel that, you got 2 there. Actually, it's going to be 30. Okay, but be careful. I think in the version of acceleration and mastery, some of you take 3.14 as pi, some of you take 3 as pi. So it doesn't matter in your exam. Just read the question carefully. If they ask you, like, say, take pi equals 3.14, so you're gonna take 3.14, not 3. Okay. One more question. Next one. As for this one, the radius of large circle is 10. And radius of smaller circle is 3. So what's the area of the shaded region? So if you want to get the area of the ring, guys, if you want to get the area of ring, you have to use a larger square, the area take away the area of this small circle in the center. That gives you the area of the ring. So for the large square, for the large circle, that will be pi times by 10 squared. And you take away the area of the smaller one, which is pi times by 3 squared, right?
300 minus.
It's 173.
So basically, guys, that'll be pi.
Wait, what? But I got 273. Are you sure
Actually,
that you?
so let's say it's going to be 100 minus 9, which is 91, right? And you take pi equals to 3, that'll be 3 times by 91. 1 times 3 is 3. 3 times by 9, 27. So that's it. 273. That'll be the answer. All right. So far, good. And also this question. The cube in the picture is made up of 64 smaller cubes with dimension 1 and 1 and 1. Row and column are smaller are indicated with shading by removed. How many smaller cubes are left in the big cube? So guys, we learned this kind of method in slicing method, right? This question in slicing method. We have to cut that into different layers. Layer top, second, third, and bottom. This is the top layer. This is the bottom layer. Second layer and third layer, right? So for the top layer, you can draw that, which is a 4 by 4 for each layer, right? This is the top. So guys, I hope you can draw the same as mine. Okay, this is second layer. And then we have 2 more. The third layer. And the bottom layer, okay? So guys, remember, we're gonna take a look from the top. So from the top, these 2 will be canceled. So you can just cancel all that 2 for all the layers, because you're gonna dig a hole from the top to the bottom, right? You're gonna go through that. So all all the layers should be removing that 2. And then this one will be only affect the second layer. So for the second layer, you will remove 1, 2, 3, 4, all that columns, right? All the cubes in that column. And these 2 will also affect the second layer. And that will be 2 complete rows, and in the middle, right? So this will be these 2 rows. And then third layer, only 1 row, which is 1 cube apart to the front. So that'll be this row. And now, guys, you need to count it. How many cubes do you have left? For the first one, 4 by 4, you got 16. Take away 2, you got 14 left. Right? This is 14 left. As for the second one, will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 left. And for the third one, actually, there will be 3 times by 4, 12, minus 1, 11. And last one is 14 as well. Right? So let's add them all together. 14 plus 6 plus 11 plus 14. These 2 add up to 20. These 2 add up to 25. So you add them together, you got 45. So there'll be 45 cubes left. Okay. Next one. Actually, guys, this one is only in the acceleration. Okay, let's see. It says a big cube with a dimension of 11 times by 11 times by 11 was made out of small cubes with a dimension of 1 times by 1 times by 1. The big cube was then painted. How many of some small cubes have exactly 2 faces painted? So everyone, if you paint all of that, and the cubes that are painted by only 2 faces, they're all on the edges, right? All on the edges. And as for a big cube, you have 12 edges. And in each edge, except the 2 corners, all the others will be painted by 2 faces, right? So we know that for each edge, we'll have 11 cubes there, but you don't count the 2 at the 2 ends, right? Because that 2 will be painted by 3 faces at the corner. So we do 11 minus 2. The answer is 12 times by 9, right?
108, so the answer is E.
Yeah, the answer is E. The answer is E. And then next one, actually the same. A keyboard with dimension 7 by 12 by 12 was made of small cubes with dimension of 1 times 1 times 1. The keyboard, when then painted, how many such cubes have no face painted? So the cubes that are hidden in the middle, in the center, right? So to get the dimension of that cubes, which are not painted at all, you're gonna take away 2 from each of the dimension, right? You're gonna take away 2. Since the 2 corners you won't paint, and all the face around that you won't paint, so you have to take away 2 from each of the number. So let's see, what do we have? 7 minus 2 times by 12 minus 2 times by 12 minus 2, right? So that'll be the dimension of the cuboid in the center that won't be painted at all. We have 5 times 10 times 10, which is 500 cubes. So you have 500 cubes that are not painted, have no face painted. And then you have 3 view here, guys. For acceleration, we don't have this question, but for mastery, we do have that, which will be the last question. It says the 3 view of a toy tower with 1 centimeter shown here. What is the volume of the toy tower? So guys, we're gonna use the top view as a plan view, right? And you count the front view, label that. So this is 1, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what does that mean? That means if you take a look from the front, if you're standing here, take a look of the figure, you can see only 1 there in that all column. The maximum we can see in the second column will be 4, and the last column will be 5. So guys, that means this must be 5 because you only have 1 cube there. And as for the left view, that'll be 2, 1, 2, 2, 5, 3, right? It'll be 2, 5, 3. So let me change my color. That means if you take a look from this direction, it's standing on the left and see that. So this will be 2, sorry, this will be 2, 5, and 3, right? To filling out all the numbers, you're gonna start from the smallest number. If you can see only one, that means all that column must be one. Because if you got some other numbers, you cannot only see one cube there, right? So this column, that will be all the ones. And for this column, you can see a 4. So this place, you cannot have a 4, right? This place, you cannot have 4. And we should move on to 2, because after 1, 2 is the smallest. This is 2, and after 2, you got 3 is the smallest. And you can see 4 in that column, in this column. That means this number here must be 4. Okay, guys, we just filling out all the cubes that we have in each position, right? And that's how many cubes that you have. And now you need to add them together. So let's add them. In this first column, you got 3. The second column, you got 2 plus 4, 6 plus 3, you got 9. And last column is 5. So that will be 3 plus 9, it's 12 plus 5, 17. All right. So guys, that's the final answer to the question 17. All right, guys, that's it. That's all for today. Any other questions do you have?